Thanks for joining us on the program, everyone. Tonight on Beyond the Headlines, we turn our focus to Nigeria's airports, the front door to the nation for millions of passengers every year. The Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria has often been in the spotlight for the wrong reasons. Long queues, touting, and overlapping checks by multiple agencies that make travel more stressful than it should be. But under its current leadership, FAAN is also pushing through some of the boldest reforms in its history. There's the multi-billion naira overhaul of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, described as the single largest airport renovation contract ever awarded in Nigeria, that has put the Federal Airports Authority under sharper scrutiny. Supporters say it's long overdue to modernize critical infrastructure, but critics question the timing, the cost, transparency, and how passenger experience will be managed during construction. There's also Operation Go Cashless, a policy shift designed to boost efficiency and revenue by moving all payment at airports to digital platforms. The promise is streamlined transactions and better accountability, but the rollout raises concerns about inclusivity for vendors, how quickly passengers will adjust, and what have you. At the helm of these reforms is Mrs. Olubunmi Kuku, the first female managing director of FAAN, recently elected vice president of Airports Council International Africa and confirmed as a permanent member of the ACI World Governing Board. Her rise marks a milestone for Nigeria's aviation sector, but the real test remains at home. Can these reforms indeed translate into a safer, smoother, and more dignified experience for the Nigerian traveler? I guess we'll find out. Ms. Kuku joins me live on Beyond the Headlines. Thank you so much for coming, and glad to have you here.
Good evening, Ifemi. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so congratulations on the ACI election. Many will say that it is proof of your competence, but there's also what critics will call the job at home. You know, the fact that international posts like this can distract from your primary assignment. So how do you intend to balance representing Africa on the ACI board and also delivering concrete improvements at our airports?
Thank you very much. I would say that the key word here is balance. We definitely know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done within our airport environment in Nigeria, but there is also a lot of work that needs to be done for us to be recognized both within Africa and globally. And the only way to do that is for us to have representation like we have now by being on boards of such prestigious institutions like the ACI, which is the Airports Company International, so representing Nigeria and of course globally. But I think what's more important is about advocacy for the region, which will definitely put Nigeria in a spotlight. Today you're seeing the likes of Cairo, you're seeing the likes of Addis, who are taking a forefront in the center of aviation with them having transit hubs for the region. And the only way for us to do similar is to make sure that we have a voice, not just for ourselves as a nation, but for smaller nations. In fact, in the last ACI meeting that we had in Lusaka, one of the hot topics was really what do we do for the likes of Central Africa and West Africa to make sure that there's better connectivity. And that's the only way we can do that, by having a seat at the table.
Practically, what does this mean for FAAN? I mean, are you getting more? I understand the global relevance, but is there access to finance, technical assistance? Are there higher international standard that we can begin to look forward to?
Absolutely. So within the ACI, there are various technical committees, which, by the way, this is the first time that Nigeria actually has full representation on all of the committees that are available. ACI was very instrumental in providing us with support for the certification of our airports. I'm sure you know that last year we got the Abuja and the Lagos airports certified. We're working very closely with the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority this year to make sure that we can certify more of our international airports as well as our domestic airports. In fact, again, another hot topic for ACI is really the fact that a lot of the African airports have not been certified. So a lot of the technical assistance that we received from them obviously came into play in terms of how we closed majority of the gaps that were identified by the Civil Aviation Authority. It also means that we're improving the skill set and the standards of our people in terms of quality, the competency, and of course making sure that within the Nigerian aviation sector, our airports are standard based on the global standards that exist.
Your role there is for how long?
This is a 4-year role that I will have as VP.
And hopefully you'll still be with FAAN for that long.
hopefully
What happens
so.
if you're no longer with FAAN?
If I'm no longer with FAAN, so again, the role is really, it was an election, so it means that another election would obviously have to take place. So while I am representing Nigeria, it's also based on the person and the personality.
Well, it means that Nigeria has talked to you whether they like it or not. That's a very smart move, though.
That's interesting, but I would say that, of course, if you're no longer in that role, then another election takes place. But we count for the best.
When you took over FAAN, you promised improved service delivery. If you were to grade FAAN's passengers' experience today, from queuing to safety, touting to baggage handling, what score would you give?
So let me say that I wear 2 hats, and my first hat today is obviously as the Chief Executive Managing Director of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. But at the same time, I'm a traveling passenger like everybody out there, and I want to be realistic about our expectations. Have we made significant progress? Absolutely. The first thing that we focused on was safety. So if we're looking at safety standards, I would say that significant progress across a lot of our airports. Some of the things that we worked on was really around making sure that the maintenance culture is improved, with the runways, so all the maintenance work, the runway rehabilitation, airfield lighting, making sure that we can extend some additional airports to longer hours. So we have extended about 5 airports as of December last year to 10 p.m. as opposed to a 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. closure. That's what we refer to as sunrise, sunset airports. But at the same time, you look at the passenger experience. I think passenger experience is probably one of the top priority areas for a lot of our passengers and stakeholders across our airport. I can gladly say that the passenger experience has improved. It's definitely not where we want to be. There's still a lot of work that has to be done. But I can boldly say that we can see the impact of the reforms. We can see the impact of the infrastructure upgrades as you're passing through our terminals. Of course, it's really around, the conveniences, making sure that, for passengers with disabilities, we've also started to make that improvement. Are there things that we can work on? Absolutely. So there's been a lot of work around touting, right? So you would see, I think I got a couple of complaints just a few days ago around touting at our airports. We're working on that very closely with a lot of the security agencies around the airports. We've also, of course, found out that some of those touts are actually people who are stakeholders within the airport environment. And we're putting in very punitive measures for all of the stakeholders, the concessionaires, who are actually working in places that they don't need to be and being in the face of our travelers. So, like I said, a lot of work that needs to be done, but significantly a lot more progress than when we started.
Put all of those factors together, how will you score it over 10?
I would say if I were to look at it, I would say that, our airports were probably about a 3 or a 4 when we started. We're probably about a 7.5 today. We need to get to a 9, 9.5 to make sure that we're fully 98% compliant. And I believe that we will get there. Give us the next 12 to 18 months.
7.5 appears to be a very high score, but I will allow the viewers to, either agree or disagree with you. Let's talk about the slaughter table for a minute. Interagency bottlenecks, touting. I thought we talked about this some 8 months ago. And then you came out, you had tough words to give. But these agencies, I don't think you have control over them, one. But then how do you enforce compliance? What happened after that meeting that you held? I mean, the resolutions that were made. What kind of evaluation do you have now, months after?
So I can say that, a lot of tough words, like you said, were made, and a lot of collaboration with the agencies. I can boldly say that with a couple of the agencies at the airport, we've made significant strides. I do know that for them as well, there are various, I don't want to use the word targets, but I would say more of KPIs that they need to realize. So examples are the likes of NDLEA, who are really looking to make sure that we reduce the level of narcotics that is being transported, while the role of the customs is to make sure that any prohibited items or dutiable items are really accounted for. I will say that we've made progress. I believe it was about 2 months ago myself and the Controller General of Customs, when we saw that there were a bit of challenges with some of the rules and regulations that we've put in place. We did a walk around of our airports. We looked at the Abuja airport. We also looked at the Lagos airport. And in the tour of the Lagos airport, he realized that, you know, some of the concerns that we raised were still there, and he handled them immediately. They were tackled immediately with the controller that was on ground, and really to make sure that there's a lot more synergy that is happening.
Do they have to check these bags manually, though?
Do they have to check bags manually? Absolutely not. But what has happened now, based on the collaboration that we've had, is that we're also doing an equipment upgrade. So what you will see at a lot of our international airports is that we've started to bring in different types of screening machines that can actually detect narcotics. We've started putting a lot of the anti-sniffing dogs who are sniffing either drugs or money, and replacing all of these globally. So what you would see is that across the various airports, as we roll out more machinery and equipment and putting in devices that are really just prohibitants to some of the items that we're looking to prohibit, you see the level of interference go down with some of these agencies as well.
You launched Operation Air Clean in December 2024, right? Precisely how many officers of these agencies have been sanctioned for misconduct related to touting or harassment?
A significant amount. In fact, I would tell you that even on Saturday, we had a number of officers that were moved out, not just within the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, but the supporting agencies that work with us. We're taking disciplinary action and measures very strictly, and it's the core. What we've seen is there are a couple of bad eggs in the system, but we will not allow them to derail us. It's absolutely impossible. Within this administration, between myself and the Honorable Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, we have gladly engaged a lot of the agencies that are working with us. I can gladly say that they're on board, they're working with us, they're collaborating with us, and we will make sure that everyone who is going to derail us is basically sniffed out.
It still doesn't give us a good picture as to what was and what is right now. Do you have metrics? Number of complaints, processing time, passenger satisfaction, to really tell whether touting has gone down since December and now?
Absolutely. I think, you know what, data is life is what I would say. Do we have metrics? Absolutely we do. So within the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, we do have a consumer protection unit, and we work closely with the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. I would say that based on the customer survey index that was recently conducted, our scores have improved drastically. So we had our scores improved by about 12%. Year over year in terms of the passenger experience, customer satisfaction surveys that were done. And I'm hoping that we can actually improve that even further. In addition to that, you had asked about processing times. Our processing times have improved significantly for both domestic and international passengers. Of course, that's not just because of the equipment that we've put in, but also because of the people. So we launched a culture accreditation program within FAAN, which we're extending to other agencies as well. You've seen the likes of, you know, the biometrics that have been launched. So on the departure e-gates, the departure e-gates were put in by FAAN for you to basically scan your boarding passes before immigration. The arrival e-gates have actually been put in by the Nigerian Immigration Services. So those are all measures that we've put in to sort of reduce the timing of passengers at the airport.
Let's take a short break and we'll return to this conversation. Stay with us, everyone. Just kidding. Mrs. Olubunmi Kuku is the first female managing director of FAAN, recently elected vice president of Airports Council International Africa. Thank you for staying the course on the program.
Thanks, Nifemi.
So the FEC approved what is reported to be 712.24 billion naira for MM1 renovation. That's some huge amount of money, because critics call that figure outrageous, insensitive. Why is such project being fast-tracked now when there are many other social, issues to be dealt with? How did he scale through to priority list? Perhaps you can help us justify the timing and the scale being given relative to social needs as we speak today in Nigeria.
The same critics who are wondering why this is priority now are the same critics who are standing at the forefront and basically saying that the airports are a mess. Our airports are the gateway to the nation. Every traveler that comes into Nigeria, whether a traveler who's coming in for their first time visit, a business traveler or an investor, their very first experience is our airports. The airports have been in shambles. Murtala Mohammed is an airport that has been built almost 50 years ago with no major rehabilitation works. The minister has been here. He's been to several media houses to talk about numbers. I don't think that's the priority right now. Is it a significant investment? Absolutely. Is it an investment that should have been made over time? It should have. It shouldn't take us 50 years to continue to make improvements. A lot of the airports that we visit globally continue to make such improvements over a period of time. They don't wait 50 years to make such an investment. If you look at how much that is today, it's about $500 million. Is it a significant amount? Absolutely. But do you understand the amount of work that is going into this? So everybody looks at it and says, oh, they're rehabilitating Terminal 1. The actual activity that is supposed to be done is a full revamp of the Terminal 1 airport. So your international terminal is going to have expansion, modernization, all of which has not happened. You do have a transit facility that is also going to be built. Today, there is no single transit activity that happens within the Nigerian airports. If you have a connecting flight to another country, you have to come out, you have to be stamped out, you can't go through transit. And if we're talking about improving our passenger traffic, it has to be done through transit passengers. We're talking about having a regional facility or having a regional hub. How do we do that without the right infrastructure? There's also been a lot of noise about Terminal 2 and what happened with Terminal 2 where wide-bodied aircrafts can pass through. Our plans as part of this full rehabilitation project is also to expand the finger for Terminal 2 so that we can accommodate a lot more passengers. It also means that we're going to expand the apron. We're building brand new roads.
I understand that, but there are also other important questions like who's the contractor? What procurement model was used? Were tenders fully transparent? The issue of transparency, which is key for many Nigerians.
Do you think that such a project will be passed without going through a full tenders process? No, it wouldn't, and definitely not under my watch. We did go through a full tenders process where it was reviewed by the Bureau of Public Procurement. It went through the Federal Executive Council. And of course, the facts are there. The data is there. It's public information for anyone who's looking for it.
So will FAAN publish all of these documents you're talking about? Procurement evaluation reports, project milestones publicly? Is that something you're committed to doing?
Why wouldn't we? We're working for the public. Look, at the end of the day, we need to justify, we need to be accountable, and we need to be transparent about our actions. I mean, if you're going to spend that kind of money, then we should make the information available. But what we will not allow is people who speak from two sides of their mouth. You can't stay in one place and say the airports are in shambles, and then after 4 years, you come back and ask, what did you do while you were there? The crux is that this administration is committed to infrastructure upgrades that commit us in a greater light, because the airport in itself contributes majorly to aviation and the GDP of this nation. So absolutely.
I'm wondering precisely what passengers should brace up for by the time, this renovation kickstarts. Disruption for passengers on Terminal 1, rerouting, temporary lounges, or flight coordination with airlines. What should we look forward to? So
let me say that, first of all, some of the rehabilitation works have actually started, so the preliminary works have started. And we did mention to the public that there's a temporary terminal that is also coming up. I want to say this is more of an appeal to our passengers to say, look, it is going to be quite strenuous over the next 18 to 22 months. We do ask that you please bear with us. There's a lot of work that has actually gone into the planning, right? Just to make sure that we can make life comfortable for you during this period. some things will change. There's quite a lot of rerouting. The rerouting has started in terms of, the check-in procedures. How do we make sure that we can still accommodate the various types of passengers? There's a lot of engagement happening with the airlines as well in terms of, the scheduling of their flights and how we move passengers, between the terminal as well as the airside. Yeah. So I will say it's going to be major, but please bear with us over the next 18 to 22 months.
I want us to explore the cashless policy, but I have a question here from one of the viewers, and it has to do with the NDLEA arresting a suspected drug kingpin and 5 members of his syndicate, and they were accused of planting narcotics on innocent pilgrims traveling through the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport. What's the role of FAAN in this?
Okay, so FAAN is an airport operator, so we run the airports. We also provide statutory services, so statutory services being fire as well as aviation security, while the airlines also have services that they procure from ground handlers. I choose not to necessarily mention the name of the ground handler here, but I do want to say that there are a lot of parties that are fully involved in airport operations. In this particular incident, I believe it happened sometime in August, where yes, indeed, there was a situation where pilgrims were planted. I believe it was more of passengers traveling who had underweight luggage, and the airline staff actually checked in additional luggage under their names. I will say that it is absolutely, absolutely intolerable where this happened. We worked very closely with the NDLEA and the DSS. Luckily for us at FAAN, and I would say we did have very clear information in terms of the incident itself. Of course, with our aviation security staff, they sprung into action very quickly.
Were the culprits your staff member?
They were not staff members of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. They were staff of ground handlers who were engaged by the airlines. However, what I am glad to say is that those pilgrims have now been released, because from the data that we had, our CCTV footages, and also the data analytics that was done, we're able to pinpoint the time and the individuals who were actually involved in this, both from the ground handlers staff as well as the individuals who moved that.
Arresting them is one thing, right? But how do we ensure it doesn't happen again?
So, of course, it's a lot of engagement, right? So Nigeria is not the only country where we have this, but it's to make sure that we have measures in place to basically safeguard our passengers and also stop or reduce the number of occurrences. People will attempt, people will try, but I will say that in this case, they were definitely caught and they've been handed over to the right authorities. We're, of course, making sure that we also improve coverage within the airport area, so CCTV coverage that has analytics, real-time information so that we can analyze the data, and, of course, a lot of profiling for these sort of individuals as well.
We have to go in 2-3 minutes. Airports are going cashless right now. What exactly is the rollout timeline?
Okay, so we did a major launch yesterday. Our pilot started off in Abuja and Lagos, where we will be rolling out, or where I should say that we have rolled out cashless, so contactless, especially at points where we have a number of passengers, so things like our access gates, car park lounges, where people are still paying cash today. This is one. It's going to be seamless. It's going to be efficient. Of course, reduce our turnaround time with these operations. We expect that towards the end of the year, we should be able to roll this out at our other flagship or international airports. And of course, by early next year, we'll roll them out at our secondary airports and domestic airports as well. Of course, the impact of this is really just more efficient and seamless operations for us.
Who's the technology partner for this contactless system?
I'm not sure that I should be promoting a technology partner.
No, I'm just interested also in the procurement and revenue share model.
Okay.
Is that something you're willing to share publicly?
Well, I can share some information about it. I think one of the things that I would say is that we went through a major or a rigorous process in terms of providing the technology provider. Of course, I'm sure you know that within their financial service rules and regulations in public office or in government, and there are only a few providers that you can potentially select from. So they have to be registered with the Office of the OAGF, which we did. But even in all of that, we wanted to make sure that we identified a partner that met our needs.
There are legitimate data privacy and cybersecurity concerns with sweeping digital payments, and that's a big and huge concern for many Nigerians who want to safeguard their hard-earned money.
So the one thing that I do want to assure you and also other Nigerians is that we didn't go with someone who is basically just picking a hat out of their box, right? So we've gone with a provider who they've done this countless of times. They're global. They've been acquired by, one of the largest payment technology companies that we're all familiar with, based out of Silicon Valley. It's tried, it's tested, it works globally, and we're going to make sure that we meet international standards.
You have also published very ambitious revenue targets. We probably will talk about that the next time you come. We'll be checking your numbers, whether you've really been able to triple triple the revenue by going cashless. Can I
clarify?
In 30 seconds, if you can.
Yeah, so yes. Happy to clarify that as well. I think in terms of how do we improve our numbers, absolutely. Those tripled numbers or 3x numbers actually refer to our non-aeronautical revenue. So this is revenue that is from our non-airport operation. So things like I said, parking activities, lounge activities, and not the likes of the landing and parking. Thank you.
Managing Director FAAN, Olubunmi, Kuku, thank you so much for talking to us. And hopefully we'll host you here again.
Thank you very much, Nifemi. It's a pleasure.
That's our show today, everyone. Remember, you can watch it again at midnight.